double, double, talk that trouble. Hex offenders in your bubble. Christian cackling, Shannon got receipts. Me and Queen sweeping up the deadbeats. Black nails, big laugh, side eye, deep cut. Name in the jar if you acting like a put. Circle cast tight, mic in the middle. One wrong move, you a roast, not a riddle. They stir, they spill, they drag, they drag. Whole damn flock in a toe tag bag. Offenders, yeah, they came to fry your vibe. From the room to the group chat live. Hex offenders, if you fake, better duck and dive. Hot tea pouring can survive. Hex offenders. Hex offenders. Hex offenders. They like that candle, talk that smack. Turn your soft flex straight into a clap back. Which tips hit list, laugh till they cry. Sweet on the real ones, curse if you lie. Cauldron on boil, that gossip steam. Every bad ex get tossed in the cream. You did dirt, better hope they forget. Or end up headline of the episode's hex offenders. Yeah, they came to fry your vibe. From the broom to the group chat live. Hex offenders, if you fake, better duck and dive. Hot tea pouring can survive. Offenders. Hex offenders. Hex offenders.
Sorry we're so late. Not my fault. I've had multiple people come on and I did not hear any echo of me. You should have echo cancellation on. I don't know what's going on with Shannon's computer. It's kind of a Luddite. Let me see if it works. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, what did you do that's different?
I restarted the computer.
All right, before you start this show every week, you need to restart the computer, but we need to be here a half an hour because if it's going to take a half an hour every time, the
No,
text,
I 100%, it's my fault, guys. My fault.
like Jesus Christ.
And
And you've got the headset on?
yep.
I would get one of these. These things are like hundreds of dollars, but they're bows, like they're little bows. They go in the. Let's see how they're.
These are heavies and they're gothic. They have a moon on them.
Oh, oh, a lot of podcasts like those. Because I'm bald. So if I put those on, like, I look like Princess Leia. It's like, yeah, I can't do this. So hello everyone. This is fucking aggravating. How's the makeup? Ooh,
It's not the first time I've aggravated him.
Anytime anyone's aggravated me, I just live aggravation. So anyway, there's like a weird shadow on me. You know what I need to bring? I think I have this too. Oh, I don't know. Here we go. That might be a little better. Hold on. Now I look a little more in frame. A little double chin here. So, oh God, what a nightmare this was. Lauren, it's okay. I'm tedious. You are tedious. Most people are tedious. They trudge. That's that line from Devil Wears Prada 2. Can you get that dealt with, whatever sickness or illness it is that makes you trudge? I never trudge. I march like a Nazi. I'm just like going right in there, just like dun, 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 dun. I'm like Jason Voorhees. I don't really have to move fast because I'll catch up with you either way. Which, please, I'm not sure who that is, but says Shannon should bedazzle her headphones with pentacles on each side. Oh, most of the people, I'm loving this. Almost most of the people are on through YouTube,
Excellent.
which is a good thing because I am going to be giving away at some point a ticket to a full weekend of Hexfest, and it will be sometime in the evening. You never know when, and it's going to be posted to the YouTube chat, which means you can only, it's a one-use code, so whoever uses it, so once I post it, I'm sure you're all going to see it, and then everybody's going to run to get the ticket. Whoever uses the code first gets it, so move fast. But it's only going to be coming through on the YouTube chat because I basically want to build up our YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, please, I don't know, what's it down there, the little subscribe little thing on YouTube. Want to subscribe, that way you get notifications and what have you, and stuff comes through. And we will only be doing giveaways through YouTube. I'm annoyed with Meta for a million reasons. I mean, let's face it, if half our family and friends weren't on Facebook, we'd all leave it. It's so annoying at this point. And so I'm really kind of focusing more on the YouTube channel because it's fun. We actually have I don't know that we have just one topic. We have a few topics, but one of our big topics this week has been inspired by a friend of mine on the internet there, the interwebs. I can see her like creeping around in she's in backstage now waiting to come on. And her name on Facebook is Ugly Shyla. Well, actually, I think it's Shyla Mo now because they deleted one of her accounts because, these people. So I don't know her full practices. She's a Cajun practitioner of magic, which of course incorporates, and she'll be able to speak to this better than I will, but it incorporates a lot of the Southern conjure hoodoo type of syncretic magic. And there's been this whole movement. I like when you say movement because it's like a bowel movement. It's like when we go to call in. Oh, yeah, but that's only the people that call in. Okay. Yeah, don't text me anymore, Michael, because it's coming through this goddamn computer and I cannot stop it. Is there a do not disturb here? Let me put on a do not disturb on the phone. That way you don't get these text dings. Anyway, so there's just been this movement to redefine not only cultural appropriation, but what defines a closed practice. And TikTok has contributed immeasurably to this, all while appropriating and pilfering every closed and sort of mysterious practice there is. I mean, let's face it, it's a wild west over there of this sort of thing, but there's some middle ground to all of this. But we've gotten so insane. I mean, I remember a few years back, there was a bunch of posts on TikTok about you're not supposed to eat Thai food because that's cultural appropriation. And it's like, oh, exactly how are these Thai people supposed to make money with their little restaurants if only Thai people can go there? I don't know if there's that many. Well, there probably are here in New Orleans, but in Salem, there's a whole huge Thai population to keep
Well,
the
that's
Thai.
like the Manitoba Shoe Company out of Canada. That's all indigenous, 100% indigenous owned, and all indigenous craftsmen make the product. They want you to buy the product. That's how they live. That's how the company makes its money. They can't just sell to a small segment of the population and expect to thrive and survive. And they're sharing the culture with us. They're encouraging us to buy it. So why would we want to put them out of business when they're asking us to purchase from them?
Well, there are certain rules. Like I know in America, you can't claim something is native as a product if it's not. They actually do have laws. Like if I were to make a dream catcher, I couldn't say, this is a Cherokee tribal dream catcher.
Exactly.
But I think that both of these things, cultural appropriation, closed practices, it's like porn. You know it when you see it. So, like, okay, cultural appropriation. You know, it got so bad where it's like, well, you cannot take anything from a culture. Originally, cultural appropriation meant you weren't profiting off of it. Like, I'm not saying I'm a Native American shaman and selling you a dream catcher when I'm some, whitey from Virginia Beach. And, that's really what its core still is. But then it got to become a more socialized thing, which was, don't take anything from a culture without permission. It really reminds me of Sir Didymus from the movie Labyrinth. No one may cross without my permission. Well, I have your permission. Well, it's like, okay, if I want cornrows, what did you say? Who's the final boss? Like, is Oprah?
Who's the final boss? Who gets to decide this?
Okay, so who do I ask? Is Oprah the queen of all black people? I mean, I don't know. Like, who? Okay, if I get 10 Native Americans that say I can use a dream catcher and 9 that don't, like, who do I listen to? At some point, sort of like when Witch Doctor Utu got all that trouble from that Paceticon there and God Did That Ever Destroy It, out there in San Jose or wherever the hell it was. And in solidarity, I wanted to do a Harriet Tubman candle. And there's this crazy mambo. I don't even remember where she is, Kentucky or something. I don't know. She got initiated in Haiti, but she fell and broke her leg in the initiation pit. And frankly, if I were the mambo, I would have said, yeah, no, we don't want you. But because there's all this money to be made, they probably still gave her the second degree. They didn't give her the third. But she's out there coaching all these women of color that know absolutely nothing about African traditional religion. They were all Christians and Catholic and whatever else. And they're reclaiming their ancestral wisdom through people like her and good old Applehead here in New Orleans, that gives this false narrative of what is acceptable. And so literally this woman sent all these black women that knew nothing about ATR yelling at me that I was stealing Harriet Tubman's soul to put her in a candle. And I'm like, first of all, these candles are stickers on a candle. They don't become something spiritual till you make them. And so people that work in the store, if they work with Aleister Crowley, they might bless the Aleister Crowley candle, but they're not going to do it, if they don't work with that particular spirit. But I also have women of color who come in who want, like, how would you feel if you went in and you were a customer of color and that store owner only had 7-day candles with white people on them? How is that not racist? So you have to find this balance between the two. And ultimately, you have to go with your conscience and hopefully make the best choice. But again, I think we all know when we've gone too far. If I suddenly have feathers in my hair and I'm walking around with a tomahawk and, calling myself an Inuit or whatever they are now, and I don't have something to back it up. I mean, here's the bottom line. I am, and this is true, this is in my DNA, I am 0.25% pygmy. But I'm still 6 feet tall. So they won't let me on the pterodactyl ride at Universal Studios, no matter how many times I've tried to get on that ride, every time I've gone. The last time I walked up to the person, I said, I am 0.25% pygmy, and I am very small on the inside. I just appear to be tall, but my soul is, mother pygmy. And it didn't get me on the ride I wanted to get on. And if I go to find my ancestral pygmy people, wherever pygmies still live, they're not going to have anything in my size. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like Stark Cassis with the sun. As a woman of African descent, she said this to me on the phone. As a woman of African, I said, when was the last time you got pulled over for the color of your skin, Star? I'd like to know. We all know. But the problem is you've now got the other extreme. People of color reclaiming that ancestry and now seeing that, oh my God, there's white people doing it. Oh, we got to take that away. Well, it was always there. Hoodoo in particular. Yes, hoodoo is a form of slave religion, but it's more than that. It incorporated so many things. I mean, yes, it's largely African. That is the biggest single contributor, I think. But you have all sorts of, Hebrew symbols and
Well, that's what I was just going to go into. Obviously, I'm adjacent to Detroit, and Detroit in particular was the hub of the Jewish pharmacists providing not only the hoodoo tools, but different spell work, different mechanisms, different even candles. You would literally in the 1920s, 1930s, you would go to the pharmacy in Detroit that the Jewish pharmacist owned and operated, and he was in the back getting the herbs that you needed, getting the spell for you. That's who was providing this, and maybe it was just regional to this area, but you can't deny the contribution that they provided.
No, and well, both the Jewish and Black communities seem to have forgotten just how linked they were during the civil rights movement. Now all of a sudden they're at odds half the time, but it's always easier to attack one another as a marginalized group than it is to, go for the real power wielders. And that's what we've basically become. So, everybody is, you can't do this. Well, yeah, a closed practice is like Haitian voodoo or initiatory witchcraft or the Masons, Freemasonry. You're not going to get it unless they let you in. But it's not closed by, ethnicity or that sort of thing. It's closed by, we've evaluated.
You're not initiated. That's why it's closed.
Right.
Once you become initiated, it's not close to you. It's part of you.
Right. And they do let you in. I'm going to bring on, and I love her makeup here. This is Ugly Shyla, although she doesn't look very ugly to me. I'm like,
hello.
Hi, Shyla. Shyla, I don't know if you remember me. We actually go way back. We go back to the goth cons, and I met
Yeah, I thought you looked familiar.
Yeah, I actually have some of your hats.
she makes hats.
She did.
So I saw your post, Shyla, and of course I saw Denise Alvarado posted about it, which is how I, and of course she's multiracial as well, and she's taken hits through the years. And, my favorite thing was when they all said, she made up the term voodoo hoodoo, right? When we bought this house 12 years ago, when our realtor was showing us the different houses and, we were telling her that we owned witchcraft shops, and she said, oh, you do that voodoo hoodoo. And, I said,
yeah,
where'd you hear that term? And she said, we grew up with it. It was always here. So, she was right about that. But Denise is another one that gets these attacks. And most of it is from people, even some of my friends, none of them admitted it. The only one that I know, Miss Aida, she is the only one I know that openly admits she had taken Cat Ironwood's classes. The rest of them, they take her classes, let a few years go by. I have a hoodoo grandmother, and every one of my relatives is Black, even though they're white as milk. And I don't know who that Cat Ironwood is.
Yeah.
As a woman of African descent, they all act like they don't know her. I mean, I'm not her biggest fan, but I do think it's kind of unfair. If you're going to learn something from somebody, give them the credit of, oh, I learned from this person.
Yeah. And like you said, I'm not her number one fan either, but I do respect the knowledge that she has, and she does have a lot of knowledge. And also,
I don't know about voodoo, but
But she's done a lot to preserve the history of hoodoo.
Yeah.
Some of the things that she's archived is incredible. She's got a lot of original stuff that's pretty neat to look at. So again, I agree with you. I'm not her biggest fan. I don't agree with some of the statements and paths that she's walked, but I respect the knowledge, and you can't deny that she does have knowledge, and she's taught hundreds and hundreds of people.
Well, I
So
Yeah.
always give flowers where they do. I do want to address this. I think this is Teppenton. I can't tell because the picture's so small, short CV. If someone from another culture says something is not for you, you should respect that. Okay, but that sounds great on paper. That sounds so noble, virtue signal, to the sky. But break it down logically.
And I
So,
am from that culture. It
yeah,
is.
but what
I'm
I'm saying is,
Cajun and
but I
from
don't mean
Southern
what.
Louisiana.
But that's not what I'm saying. Like, okay, so if I want cornrows and 500 black people say, I don't mind if you have cornrows, and one person from the culture says it's not for me, I should respect that. Well, I don't agree with that. Like, I do think that, especially since I'm sure that I can find a black person that's a serial killer. I'm sure I can find a black person that murdered their mother. I'm sure I can find a black person that's 50 and walks around in diapers as a sexual kick and thinks that's interesting. Just because you're black or white or Native American or whatever else doesn't mean you're not a freak show. So, I get to evaluate beyond a statement like that because it's only part of the story. You know what I mean? Like it's only part of the story. If at some point you have to go with your conscience, and like I said earlier, it's like sex. Or porn. You know it when you see it. When that guy went on TV and he had, he claimed to be doing sweat lodges, and he built the whole thing out of these tarps. And remember, all these people died in the
Yeah,
tarp.
yeah.
Jay,
Yeah, he can do my cornrows. That's the best. I don't have any hair. I look like fucking Stevie Wonder, like who still has the dreadlocks and all these bald patches, but he's blind. I will never understand. It's but Streisand sang this song with what's the blind guy's name? Andrea Bocelli, and the song was "I Still Can See Your Face." Of course, Stevie Wonder. Isn't she lovely? How would he know? So I mean, I don't understand, but I'm going to do the short. Stevie says, I'm thinking in the context of a religion or spirit mystical tradition. Well, that's even more going into murky waters because cultural appropriation used to be, are you making money off of this person's culture?
that was the original
But
definition.
now it's,
profiting off of it.
how dare you pray to such and such a god? Well, last I checked, most of these fucking gods. What did you ever see The Color Purple? I think it pisses God off if some people walk through the field and see the color purple and don't notice it because God just want to be loved. Like, I think most of these gods are happy somebody fucking shows up. I think they're happy somebody remembers them. They're not going, let me put the paper bag test. You know what I mean? Like I think where well, even Jay, who's on the chat, made a point that she said, this is in my blood. Like, she's not going to Haiti to get initiated. I don't know that I'd call what she would do Cajun voodoo if she didn't personally, but she does have that magic in her blood. She's either first or second generation Haitian. That's her magic. And I think that Haitian voodoo in particular is different than, say, Southern Cajun conjure magic. Like,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what this happened to you this past week.
Just in general, I just get attacked online. I have people even scrutinize my family photos to see how dark my family is.
me
They
get the
don't
gone through that.
understand what the word Creole means, because I explained to people that I'm Cajun and French Creole, meaning that my people came from France and were born here in the colonies. They think that Creole means that I'm saying that I'm half black. So they don't understand what the word Creole means. So they'll attack me thinking that I'm saying that I'm mixed with, or I'm saying that I'm half black. And I'm like, you're not understanding what I'm saying. You don't understand the term that I'm saying. And they also don't understand that in southern Louisiana, I'm from a little town called Jennings, that white people and black people, our cultures are very, very similar. And we both practice voodoo and hoodoo and gris-gris, or gris-gris, as American people tend to say it. We both practice it the same way. We both practice it together. I learned from black, Cajun, and Native American people, because Native Americans also had a hand in teaching us root work and what the different herbs and things were for. Because when slaves got over here and us Cajuns got over here, we had no idea what the different herbs and roots did to heal or harm or whatever. So the Native Americans basically saved our butts teaching us about the local floral and fauna. And they had a huge hand in voodoo and hoodoo in southern Louisiana.
Absolutely. I don't know why my screenshots aren't showing up. Oh, here we go. Hold on. I'm getting, we all gotta go to, present or invite image file.
But I've seen that as an outsider on your end, Shyla. I've seen people go after you and, make comments like, that girl's clear. How could she be?
I know, and I'm the only pale one really in my family. And like my mama used to bring me to the doctor to see if I was anemic constantly. And finally my mama had to tell her, she's like, Mama, she's just white. She took after the Texans in the family. I have a Texas pawpaw. So she's like, she just took after the Texan blood. She's just white. Stop taking her to the doctor.
Well, and here's my thing. Why do we have to come forward with these blood quantums? I don't understand this. It's very frustrating.
Well, it comes from, again, it's the pendulum. They come for the blood quantums because on the other side you get, sir, there's a woman of African
Yeah.
and she's like 9,000 pounds and white as milk. But so Creole, the third, you don't even get the whole racial quantum until the third definition of Creole, and this is from Merriam-Webster. Now, obviously, there's been a shift in language because language evolves, and so most people nowadays, when they hear Creole, they do think mixed race. Whereas in Haitian, Creole is a language. It's something,
and in Louisiana too.
Right, it's something people speak. And back in French and Spanish New Orleans, the Creoles were the people that lived in the French Quarter. That's why they call Canal Street, they have that space between called the neutral ground. I always call it the neutral zone, very Star Trek, because the Americans wouldn't cross over. And I had this debate once with, well, it wasn't a debate, but she was on the show and we got into debate. Kat Ironwood, about 15, 16 years ago, was on my show. And she said, well, hoodoo is Protestant. And I said, well, that's weird because it certainly did exist here in New Orleans. And, and I said, this was a very Catholic city. Nobody in the French Quarter was Protestant, really.
No, and Cajuns are predominantly Catholic.
Right. And so, there's so many variables to this. Now, naturally, I understand that there's a mindset of, if you are a person of color, but, America had the worst system of slavery in all of history.
Yeah.
And so, there's all of this emotional trauma that's feeding this, and people like Applehead, um, he'll never have a name on this show. I will only name the people that don't want to be talked about. I'll never name the people that do want to be talked about. But Applehead, has got this huge following of people of color that, are wanting to reclaim that magic, but they're coming to him, I had a hoodoo grandmother and a hoodoo grandfather. I'm waiting for the cousins. No, he learned everything from Saint Louis, a Jewish white guy.
Yeah.
And, now you'll never hear that. The whole story has changed. And I feel like that, you see it in witchcraft. We had all the grandmothers for however
Oh
many.
yeah.
If I had a nickel for every, now it's Appalachian. I say that.
That's the new catchphrase. Yeah.
Strega. Remember, everybody was Strega. I'm a carrying my grandmother stirred the gravy with the whip. And now, it's they if they really wanted to go, if you're gonna go big or go home, take a pair of pliers, pull out a couple teeth, and they're from fucking Virginia Beach. And it's gotten to the point of ridiculous. And so I'm not really advocating for one extreme or the other because I don't like extremes.
Yeah.
And when I responded on, it was either your post or I don't remember, but either yours or Denise's, and I wrote a long thing to somebody on there about this. And was it you? I don't remember. But yeah, and I wrote a long response about this. And, I totally do, well, so someone made the argument, if you're black, you'll get a different initiation and, than if you're white and all of this, it's an all race and it's all this. But that's not what actually happened. I went to Marie Carmel, and, this was before she left New Orleans, and she's from Haiti. They call her the Bougie Mambo, fabulous person. And she, I said, well, there's this, Mambo Elizabeth. Oh, I shouldn't say her name. She's the one that want to be talked about. Anyway, wherever she, this Mambo, quote unquote. She said, there's a different initiation. And she went into this. There are spirits they will never know and powers they will never have because they weren't born in Haiti. And it really hit me. I said, as white and black alike, really anyone in America, the melting pot, it is hard to have that sense of nationalism. I mean, you have white nationalism, you have black nationalism, and you have the mostly Irish people that wave the green on St. Patrick's Day. But if you're like me and you got 20 different ethnicities, you don't really have a sense of nationalism. Whereas Haiti, it's a very strong, and I never knew this until I had this conversation with Marie. I said, okay, so with this woman, race is not first. It's Haiti is first. And it's like, you're not from here. You know what I mean? And I got it because that was, her thing. And I do think that, if you're a Zilidantor, a spirit created from the fires of the revolution of Haiti, you are probably going to smile more fondly on your own descendants.
Yeah.
I don't know that would include Americans, black or white, but you are going to smile. I said in the post I made, because somebody, you can't call on this person. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If I call on my grandmother in spirit, she probably will care more about what I need than what you need, depending on how I've behaved that week. But she'd probably still listen to you. My grandmother, when she was alive, was very known for being very giving and loving. I never met her. Nutless Wonder defaced her fucking Find a Grave page. I'm furious about that for weeks. And, so I see both sides of it. But at the same time, if that's your culture as a Cajun.
And in Louisiana, we believe that, like, We don't necessarily do initiations. We believe that you're born with the spiritual gift to practice voodoo and hoodoo. It's the same thing with, I don't know if you've ever heard of a traiteur
Yeah,
or a treater.
like the
They're
Cajun heel.
born, yeah, they're born with the gift of healing. Just like I wasn't born with the gift of healing. I don't have it. I'll never get it. I wasn't born with that gift, but I was born with the gift of being able to practice voodoo and hoodoo.
Well, and that's the other thing. Voodoo, Marie herself, when she first came to Salem, she was another one, like, Iron. There's no New Orleans voodoo. This is all plantation, and I said, well, it does not have the same legacy, as Jay just pointed out. Haiti, she's Haitian. They were the first free black nation in the Western Hemisphere, free since 1804. Voodoo fueled the Haitian Revolution, which laid the ground
Yeah.
for Louisiana Purchase. But that is a very defining fact there, because voodoo having driven the revolution, which to my knowledge is the only successful slave rebellion in history, black, white, or any other color. And it's very defining, because the people in Haiti, because they were driven by voodoo, they accepted it. There's an old saying, what is Haiti's 90% Catholic, 10% Protestant, 100% voodoo. Louisiana's the or New Orleans was the opposite, because it was oppressed. I mean, and worse under the Americans. The French, you could buy your way out of enslavement, with the Sunday dances, the Congo Square, and they have the marketplace. But I think it's unfair to the practitioners of African religion of New Orleans to sort of be dismissed as invalid because they didn't have the same level of organizational structure as, say, Haitian voodoo. How could they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the actual political infrastructure of Haiti was lifted by voodoo and lifted voodoo.
Yeah.
Exactly the opposite was true in New Orleans. So to practice there, you were breaking all sorts of rules and guidelines. And so naturally it was going to be much more fragmented, difficult to practice, and like all folk magic and practices. But I feel like there has to be this middle ground between the two. Oraculum, you always have these names I can never pronounce. Oraculum scorpia, yeah. Cultural appropriation it does exist, but it's totally over. Well, it's, again, we are living in this super polarized time where you have to be all Democrat or all Republican or I'm for the New York Yankees, or I'm for this other team, or I'm for the, there's no nuance anymore.
Exactly.
There's no, you don't want to go be like that guy, that white dude that made the Native American sweat lodge they all died in because he did it in a time. I mean, he knew nothing about what a sweat lodge was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's something you don't want. But, how do you force something like that? I think eventually you have to pick your conscience. And it's I've gotten so frustrated with the cancel bullshit that, I was it 3 years ago, somebody bullied someone out of WitchCon, and and it was a theistic Satanist, someone that believes in the devil, and that Jade saw Luna, and I said, dude, you're sucking the devil's cock and you jumped off the fucking ship at the first breeze. Oh no. So I went and I'm like, okay, I got to get the most controversial. I literally had to, because I might have said the most misogynistic thing anyone has ever said to the mother of feminine spirituality, Z Budapest, back in 2011, because she'd upset me and I made some terrible thing I shouldn't have said. And so I went groveling, because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring like this turfy super I don't even agree with half of it. I mean, I love her because she's Z Budapest. She's an icon. But I don't agree with all her positions. But I did it to make a point. Like, I'm going to have, there's this one Asian woman that's, I guess it was at Austin Witch Fest, and she was part of Kobe Michael's thing. And now apparently because she likes Trump, and mind you, I loathe Trump. But,
Yeah.
Am I going to take this one? Oh, you can't present at an event because you voted for Trump or you did this. I'm just done. I've had enough. I can't be part of conversations. I can't influence conversations I'm not in. So I've traded cancel culture for conversation culture. And frankly, like, the right wing invented cancel culture. They did. The Dixie Chicks, Kathy Griffin, all those boycotts from the American Family Association throughout the 1980s and beyond. They invented cancel culture. And the left picked it up, and they do it more, but they don't do it as well. Because when the right wing cancels people, they cancel left wingers. And when the left wing cancels people, they also cancel left wingers.
Yeah.
So this is when the right wingers work for them. Like, they couldn't get, you had somebody as fucking anti-Semitic and misogynistic and horrible as Mel Gibson, and they could not cancel him. And they really didn't cancel Roseanne. I mean, she lost her job. The woman's still rich, and now she's got more influence politically than she ever had before. I thought she should have been fired back then. In retrospect, I don't. I think what they should have did is every time you tweet, we take another 10,000 off your salary, something like that. But I don't know if that would have passed muster. But we've got to find that middle ground. We've got to find the place where, the second waivers can sit in the room with trans women and listen to them. The trans women can sit in the room with the second waiver and hear them and maybe not agree. But, I always laugh because I'm mostly left, but I'm not like Z Budapest left, and I'm not most trans activists left. And these TERFs and trans activists agree with one another on 99% of their politics, which I might agree with both of them at maybe 75%, maybe not even that. And yet they spend all their time fighting over that 1%. Surely, and I'm not saying, there isn't bigotry there. What I'm saying is, if you don't have the means to have the conversation, you're just empowering the right wing. It's like when the blacks and the Jews went at each other in Crown Heights, you know what I mean? And that became this big thing. And, and it's like, and yes, there were legitimate grievances in that situation. But it's like, you're both two of the most marginalized groups in history. Surely we can stand together and point the gun that way.
Yeah. That's what I also try to explain to people. I'm like, blacks are a marginalized group, and Cajuns and Creoles are also a marginalized group. So why are we fighting each other? I don't understand why we're not all together trying to fight the main source of the problem. Why are we fighting each other?
Well, I remember,
They want us to.
I'm 56, so I'm old enough to remember when the Democratic Party was the Big Ten. Everybody was under the Democratic Party. You had your Southern Democrat, all sorts of things, and it slowly changed with Reagan, and but they were now you've got Republican trans people, Republicans. I don't understand it, but but they're at least pretending to let them through the door. We are so busy canceling, and we don't want to get too, this show's not meant to be political in that regard because we kind of want a vacation from it, but it's infiltrated all these spiritual groups.
Yeah.
And it's become, a statement of defiance to try to rein people in. And I find the hypocrisy abhorrent. That's what really galls me. So there's this museum that was going to be coming to Salem. I'm kind of irritated. I mean, the guy seems like a tool. I was watching this video that Elton Cassidy did about how Salem violated my First Amendment rights by asking what kind of business I was running. Well, that's not. They're going to ask you what kind of, are you opening a porn shop? I mean, it's. But they decided not to go because the city wouldn't let them stay open till 2 a.m. But in the process of this discussion, all the people that hated the Warrens, and mind you, my best friend Sean, when he was alive, great fan of the Warrens, but they were these Catholics that hated witches and thought everything was possessed. I mean, I get some of you probably believe that Raggedy Ann doll is demonic. I can't say I'm among you, but but I did love when the voodoo bone lady came out. Go to hell, Annabelle. In Florida water, but I saw all these people going against the Warrens, and there were these people that went on there and were like, "There's a rumor that he got a 15-year-old girl pregnant. Let's destroy him." And I'm looking at the people. I'm like, okay, this person owns a shop. This person, I know this person. Every one of them either sold, owned, or read in some way books by Raven Grimassi. Used to be a dear friend. He kind of turned, he cursed us in the woods about a couple years before he died because his group decided that after a branch from a tree fell on one of their priests at a Grimassi tradition picnic that I had made the tree fall, so suddenly I became the tree whisperer, and I tried to tell everybody that if I actually had those kinds of powers, that the trees would either be robbing banks or they'd be like those Ents in Lord of the Rings showing up at the White House. Like I picked the trees from the Rose Garden, the one that those trees Melania ripped up. But Grimassi, I personally saw the marriage record of when he was in his 20s, mid-20s, married to a 15-year-old girl. And of course, I've talked about on this show how Jason Mankey was allegedly Kenny Klein's roommate, who died, was it in prison for running a kiddie porn site with many people claiming he'd molested kids and all this, but he was convicted of kiddie porn. Now look, well, not the kiddie porn. I'm not outraged. Like when I posted this on my wall, this weirdo named Rob Abbott, looks like he's 2 clicks from death, comes on my wall. He's a big fan of Denise, and you're friends with this Harold Carter, and he was in jail before. I said, okay, first of all, you're missing. I ended up deleting this post because even most of my supporters lacked the intellectual, and I know I'm being mean to them, but I can't help it. I'm going to be mean. If you can't step your fucking intellectual pussy up, I'm going to be mean. Very few of these people could grasp what I was actually saying. They thought that I was outraged by Raven Grimassi and Jason Mankey, and that I should also be outraged by people that I know, like Harold. And then somebody else came on and said, well, what about the Frosts? And, they wrote about deflowering a young girl with a fire pick wand. I'm like, well, Grimassi might have actually used one. I mean, he married a but they took it as I was outraged, and therefore they had to pile on and say who they were outraged by, and then who I should be outraged by that I'm not. It had nothing to do with any of it.
Yeah.
Nothing. I'm not outraged by Jason Mankey having been Kenny Klein's roommate. I'm not outraged, or allegedly, I'm not outraged by Grimassi marrying a 15-year-old girl, because in the 60s, that was a lot more normal. Fucking, what's her name there? Loretta Lynn got married at 13. I think it's creepy. I'm not one of these, if there's grass on the field, play ball types. But at the same time, what I was trying to say that got lost not only by the haters, but my support, like no one, 3 people got this that I could tell, that understood what I was saying, which is someone's bad action shouldn't be based on how you feel about them. If my mother would have become a serial killer, okay, I might pay for her lawyer, but I'd still be like, I've had people in my life that were very close to me do things that landed them in jail for a couple of years. And I said, look, I'll pay for your lawyer. I want you to be able to have the best case, the best chances, but I ain't visiting you in jail. I'm not sending you money for the commissary, whatever. I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't like what you did.
Yeah.
And I don't base, like, my haters will literally hang on, that Nutless Wonder in New Orleans literally desecrated my grandmother's Find a Grave page, which is a picture of the gravestones. Like, any magical person that would desecrate it's something that even intimates a grave.
Yeah.
Even if it's digital, That's not a magical person, but this person, did this and puts up this misdemeanor from 25 years ago when I had people prank calling Jody Cabot. That began the whole 10-year, feud of that. But I don't care if people know I have a misdemeanor. If I had a felony, I wouldn't care. I don't have skeletons in my closet. They're all on the clothesline. So, but what bothered me is somebody goes and they see this. They go to this gravesite page, and my family, they're doing genealogical research. And they're going to see this about someone in the family that's so offensive, and so I don't know. I mean, I just feel like we've got to find a whole different way of communicating all of this, because they're not getting it. They're like, oh, well, we don't like Ed Warren, so we're going to hype every little thing. Oh, we don't like Christian Day, so I always say, I've been accused of every crime you can possibly shake a stick at in the court of pagan public opinion. Everything from murder, pedophilia, animal abuse, women beating, rape of men, rape of women. Never been with a woman, but apparently I raped one once. Go on and on.
People take things overboard now so badly.
The only thing that I have not been accused of, so I tell all my haters, or my friends, if you ever get mad at me, say I fucked a goat in the woods, because I've never been accused of bestiality. That's the only one. But it's people that don't like me, and so they want to find the thing, that they latch onto. What makes it hypocritical is, Nutless Wonder went out there and said, my husband and I were rapists. We dated an 18-year-old. We never dated an 18-year-old. First of all, that isn't rape. Number one, it's legal. But the people saying this are okay with Gramassi marrying a 15-year-old. Make that make sense. That was what that post was about. That we're not, the people attacking you, would they attack the person yes. In fact, this was one of the funniest pieces of that. When, what was it? When that Mambo Elizabeth Ruth, okay, I said her name, went on one of her tirades about white people practicing voodoo. Somebody went on there and said, well, what about that Mama Star? She doesn't look like us. So Ruth gets on there and replies to this and says, oh, well, she had my back once. Okay. So what you're saying is this practice is closed to anyone that isn't a person of color, unless someone decides there's some arbitrary reason why you at least initiation I can understand. Okay, I'm going to Haiti, I'm a white person getting initiated. I don't really understand. Oh, you had my back once, you can culturally appropriate. And the next thing, son of a woman of African.
Well, that's my problem that has came up over and over again in the pagan community, and I'm going to reference Klein again. When he was originally accused, everybody stood up for him and said those kids were making up a story. They said that the ex-wife was crazy. And okay, what happened to believing the victim? Like, they were so brutal to those victims, and they actually never believed him. It wasn't till the second round of accusations that he got in trouble, so to speak, and convicted. That first round of accusations, nothing ever came of them. Those kids never had a day in court. That woman never had a day in court. And everybody, like I said, there was no believing of the victims then. And then years later, when the second round came out and he actually did get convicted, then everybody's like, oh, okay, well, you didn't believe them then.
And it's like, his ex-wife called me, they called me a Kenny Klein defender, which is so funny because I despised the man. I absolutely loathed him. But I said on the Wild Hunt chat, I said, well, this is really disappointing if it's true. I want to wait and see what, the court say. People are like, what do you mean? He's guilty. I'm like, well, I don't know. He didn't diddle me. This Christ, the priest never wanted me. I never had an uncle with a candy bar. Nobody wanted me. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I wasn't there. And here's that's another problem, though. You know, remember when Alyssa Milano came out? She was the first. She wasn't really the inventor. It was some black woman that invented Me Too. But then Alyssa Milano grabbed onto it, and you know, she became the face of, you know, Me Too, Me Too, and it was believe the women, believe the women, believe the women, believe the women. Until Tara Reid came out and said, you know, Biden stuck his fingers in her snatch. Well, when I said believe the women, I didn't mean that. You know, now poor Alyssa Milano is getting it for both the left wing and the right wing, because nothing is absolute. First of all, in this new sort of identity politics realm, where, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm not, you know, I perfectly support trans rights, but there is a certain angle to self-declaration that has its flaws. If womanhood is simply declaration, then everyone is potentially a woman, and therefore believe women means nothing. You have to believe everyone, because I could declare myself a woman tomorrow. So if I'm sexually assaulted tomorrow and I'm not a woman, so you're not supposed to believe me if I suddenly declare myself one, does that make me believable? They don't tell you that stuff. You know, when everything is amorphous, you know, and not defined, you know, or defined in such extreme ways that there's no discussion. Like, first of all, who is anybody to, like, there are a lot of people that, I mean, Jay here is in the chat somewhere. I mean, she's pretty light skinned. You know what I mean? There's people looking, is saying, oh, well, how much black's in you? Well, I mean, how do you go about that?
There are people that are even saying that, like, even if your parents are black, if you are white presenting, say you have a white grandmother and you're very white presenting, you can't practice voodoo because you're so white presenting that you don't have enough melanin to practice voodoo.
And that's just preposterous.
Well, I
It's
remember,
it's so silly.
I remember when Star Cassis used to get mad about, you know, and she did. I was on Applehead's side in this one when she went up and said, son, I'm like, you know, when you walk up to a black guy and go, son, it's sort of tantamount to boy, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, I was kind of on Applehead's side on that one. But you're mixing and moxing the work, you know, and I got into it once with her because, you know, she's from some tract house and, you know, outside of Houston or whatever. And I know because Crystal Madison and I were on Google Street Maps, like stalking her house. You get bored sometimes. But so, you know, I remember I said, do you realize that New Orleans is the very essence of mixing and moxing?
Yeah.
That's
the very
what
essence.
it was founded on.
It's literally, that's everything. Like, it's the river. It's like the smudge stick. You know, I'm from New England. I didn't like when the carrots touched the peas. You know what I mean? Like, nothing to touch. We're very separate-y in New England and territorial, whereas like here, the river just blends it all together. And, you know, and I said, this place is the very essence of mixing and moxing. And she says to me, well, I don't know about above that Mason-Dixon line. And I said, you do realize that New Orleans Star is below the Mason-Dixon line. Tell me you know this. You know, just I don't know. I'm not a serial killer after all these years. I really don't. Because I don't, this shit that you're dealing with, I'm going on 40 years. Like, I started in all this in 1987. I decided to buy a deck of tarot cards. And then in 88, I decided, oh, I'm going to be a witch. And, you know, we're almost 40 years looking at these freaks. And it's real irritating, you know, because there's just so much of this in the discussion that is,
but I do blame TikTok. I really do.
Oh, this has been going on since before TikTok. I mean, it's made it worse.
I don't know. I that's what I'm gonna say. I think it escalated it.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
because everything after TikTok, everything became appropriation. Everything.
Well, social media itself, in many ways, caused this, because the internet in many ways, it's such a positive in that it democratizes opinion, and it's absolutely horrific because it democratizes opinion. It's like, well, we can now hear from people you wouldn't normally hear from, and now you know why you
Yes,
can't hear
Lauren,
them.
you're right. You are so right, Lauren. It did. I remember that.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny because Stevie Nicks ain't giving up that word. First of all, can I just say something? Every fucking Romany, and there's another kind of gypsy too that is not Romany. I feel like my friend Angie Buchanan has a connection to that. I don't know. None of them have a problem with the word gypsy.
No,
My
I have.
husband is half Spanish gypsy, and he calls himself a gypsy.
Yeah.
The only times I see that, I remember this. Seems like your spirituality is cultural appropriation, the religion. This was a Facebook group I had a sock on because I was so curious. Because I saw that awful River Anodian, whatever. I got in such trouble for this, but she publicly used this name. So, River Anodian, Andrew Berman, Tea Addicted Witch, Scarlet Magdalene, whatever. They calling, I don't know, she might not be a they anymore. I have no idea. She, one of those crazies, but she was posting on her wall about these social justice warriors coming at her. And I'm like, this person is the most virtue signaling, pseudo liberal, pretendy far leftist, ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. I have to go see the people that outdid her. Like if they out social justice did her, I need to see these people. So I go and I look. You can't read tarot cards because tarot comes from the Romany people, and tarot this and tarot that. Now look, cards probably what originated in Iran or whatever it was, but it was a game for Italian nobles, the tarot. I mean, at this point, it's like to try to, and then they had quite the grift going on. Because all these kids, and they're all in their early 20s, and they're like, I have discovered that I am Romany, I'm trans-non-binary, I have Tourette syndrome and multiple personality. I'm not even exaggerating this. There were at least 20 people in this one Facebook group claiming multiple personality disorder. And of course, I had to, I asked the Bart Simpson sort of questions, if my arm is amputated, will it be waiting for me in heaven? So naturally, I started to ask my trans friends. I'm like, I got to ask because I saw this group, this, cultural appropriation group. I said, and there's all these trans people saying they have multiple personality disorder and Tourette's. So I need to ask, if you have multiple personality disorder and 2 of your alters are trans and 3 are not, like who gets to decide what gets cut off? You know what I mean? Like, does there have to be a majority of alters that want to go through the surgery, or is it just who happens to be in control that day? I ask these kinds of questions. I get curious, I just want to understand. Because I don't think I have multiple personality disorders. I don't know. I could. It wouldn't shock me. But what is wrong with? Well, not this Wonder Woman. Absolutely, they were going to sue. They were going to sue an elementary school in New Orleans because they're, or it must have been middle school, maybe. I don't know. Because what were their kids at the time? Probably 14, so maybe middle school. I don't know. But they weren't in high school yet. And a bunch of Black kids called their child, what is it, an Eskimo. And apparently that's as bad as the N-word now. You're supposed to say Inuit or whatever mind you, Witch Doctor Utu performed these people's wedding 25 years ago. She was never magical or spiritual at all. Now, there's so many retrofitted stories to these people, and one of them is that they're now indigenous and, apparently they're all upset that I use the word Eskimo. And I'm like, I get I don't see it as the N-word. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, they did change the name of Eskimo pie. But if you do see the video for Nutless Wonder, you might notice that Hello Kitty has an Eskimo pie bar in her hand throughout the entire every scene of the video. Hold on. I need a little hold on. There's got to be a little musical interlude here. That must happen. I hope. Do 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 do. Oh, for Christ's sake, there's so much like clicking and dragging having to go on here. Do, do.
Thinks he's a vampire, sucking down communion wine.
Oh, wait.
Claims he's a bishop, fucking every drunken swine. Calls himself a sin eater, swallowing down every wad. Pretends he's a big bad witch, but he's a giant fraud. He's got a lot of cheap hoes he can call while Hello Kitty's home with the Benoit ball. Being nasty at the bar to a side piece queen, calling her names and being so mean till her showed up, swung in from under. One crack, one scream. Welcome to the thunder. Nutless Wonder. You thought you were divine, now you're going under. Nutless Wonder, high priest of all the losers, kneeling in the gutter. Nutless Wonder, count cosplay with the busted ball. Nutless Wonder, now your micro dick won't rise at all. You played with fire, got the full-on blunder. Praise be, baby, you're a nutless wonder. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Where's my? Can you hear me?
Me?
Yeah. Well, because I can't see me.
Oh, really?
Now, let me reload and see if that.
I can't
Oh, there
see. Okay. I can't see like our feed. I don't know if I'm on my Facebook or not.
Oh, it's streaming to my Facebook. Like when I go
Okay.
to my.
Yeah, because it's telling me to stream this to my audience.
Oh,
let me-
we already do because you're already in the thing.
Oh,
If you log in, like it gives everybody that comes in on the screen the opportunity. And by the way, this is a call-in show, but it's video
And
call.
I can't hear Christian.
Can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
Well, that's so weird. Let me put her back on the stage. Am I there?
Can you hear us, Shyla?
I can hear you,
Okay,
That doesn't make any sense.
but I still can't hear Christian.
that's weird. Huh?
Can everybody else see? Oh, Jay hears everyone. I don't know. Well, log in again. Here, I'm going to tell her to log in again because she can't hear me. Shannon,
What?
tell Shyla to log in, come on again.
Oh, Shyla, log out, log back in.
Okay.
Maybe that, I don't know what happened. Weird. I don't know. We couldn't hear each other. We're all in the zone. Well, we can bring on here. Let's just. Well, what happened to Shannon?
Oh, I'm still in the queue.
Yeah. Shyla, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. There's Uncle Bert, but Shannon seems
I
to
didn't
have.
realize I was still in the queue.
I don't know what happened to Shannon. Is
Well,
it
hello,
still
hello.
echoing? I don't hear any echo.
I don't hear any echo either.
It is echoing still. Everyone is going. How about now?
You sound okay.
Oh, I turned off. There shouldn't be any echo now. Oh, for Christ's sake, what is going on? Well, let me take Birch, I'm going to take you because maybe that's why.
Okay. I didn't.
I don't know. Are we echoing still? Oh, echo is gone. Might have been something to do with Birch.
It actually bumped me out and then let me back in. It was really weird.
Weird, the technical glitches. Call in show if people want to call in. The number to call, well, not the number. It's join.hexoffenders.live, which is right there on the screen. And this, we have to do video because somebody came on last week and had a fake picture and no video, and they used the N-word, and then they posted a picture of, like, I don't know, some pornographic thing that I had to go in.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I don't want to deal with that sort of thing, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's just this, we've got to find a new way to have conversations. You know, it's I do have to shout out to Street Griot J. She's an incredible tour guide with the Spirits and Spells tour here in New Orleans. But she did something really funny the other day. So she was out in front of Aunt Tiki's little tiki bar there, just a few doors down from Hex and one door down from another store whose proprietor we might have seen or not seen in some video just a few moments ago with that giant growth between his eyes. And Jay has a Bluetooth speaker that hangs off her hip. And I guess he was out standing in front of his store. And she starts playing that song on the Bluetooth speaker with him standing right there looking at her. So, yeah, she's definitely got chutzpah. So, Shannon, what did you want to add to this? I've sort of been too talkative.
Well, it was just and I'm not trying to pick on TikTok, but Shyla, I know you have a good presence there, and I just feel like a lot of times these so-called witch talk people, they come on and again they're trying to say that you're appropriating, you're this, you don't have the right to speak of this, whereas in reflection, to me, it looks like they're the ones being performative.
Yeah.
Becky with the good hair, it's not up to you to decide who gets to speak on these topics.
Like those, oh God, I always makes me think of those behemoth white women at one of the Black Lives Matter protests. I don't know if you remember. I don't remember where this one was, but it became sort of famous because all these like really fat white women got right to the front, and they were trying to be the voice of the whole thing. And I'm like, it kind of may not be. That's where you say maybe this is. We're glad you're here.
This is not for you.
Well, it's not that they shouldn't be there necessarily. Allies are a wonderful thing, but that's where you're like, it's like I said, you know porn when you see it.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't anything to do with spirituality, but this has always stuck in my mind. In 2019, when Karl Lagerfeld died, I posted something on my Facebook because I always liked the quote about him saying that if you wear sweatpants, you gave up, and I always resonated with that. And so I posted something about when he passed away, and this woman came on and just attacked me and said, I'm glad he's dead. He was a homophobe, and she's going on, and I'm just like, where are you even getting your information from? He was married to a man. Let's start there. And it was just
be mad at me because I'm like RuPaul on Drag Race, where she'll be in all the dress, but under the camera line, I have sweatpants on.
But but that to me summed that whole situation up, because you always have these people coming and attacking, and they have no basis for their information.
And
They
come
heard
out
it
of the
from.
woodwork.
Yeah, and you see this oftentimes, when people do like these street interviews and things at these protests, they'll go up and they'll say, "Well, why are you here? Why are you protesting?" And they'll say, "Well, I'm an ally. I'm here to support." Okay, well, what part of this, resonates with you? What part of this do you believe in? And they can't answer it. They're just there for attention for themselves.
A nickel for how many people at certain protests don't know which river or which sea. And they never to the sea, and they'd be like, the Euphrates. I mean, like they don't know, and it's just like, well, my girlfriend wanted me to come. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, are you really embracing whatever this is? Because what kind of ally are you if you don't understand the discussion at all?
And that's my whole point. I will defend, no matter what side of the coin you are, what in and out of the box, whatever. I will defend your right to protest, to speak your mind. That's your American right. That's why we're here as Americans. That is 100% your right, and I will defend that to no end, whether I agree with you or not. But my problem is if you are there protesting, know what you're protesting, know what you're believing in. Don't just show up so that you might get on camera.
Well, it's very, very tribal, and it's like, and you want to find that place where, you don't want to disrespect someone's tradition. You don't want to just pick up a book on Haitian voodoo or initiatory craft and suddenly declare yourself a mambo or a high priest or a nungan or whatever. It needs to be, you don't want to just be dabbling, but you also don't want to be policing every person that's out there that obviously is very committed to what they're doing. And there's a big difference between, when I think of a closed practice, I don't think of this is closed to racial groups. I think this is closed to people who have not done the work to be in it. If you're an initiatory tradition of some kind, well, yeah, it is a closed practice. I don't think anybody should be calling themselves a Haitian Mambo if they haven't, done the work.
Been properly initiated, right?
To say, these Asatru groups, and they'll be like, for people of European descent, and it's like, I hate to tell you, but the Vikings got around. They didn't just get around the block. They took the bus. I mean, the Vikings, there was that idea of race in that era didn't exist the way that it does now. You weren't categorizing. When I looked at the temples of ancient Egypt and the tombs, there were people of every color standing in the rows. There was lighter and darker, and it didn't feel stratified when I saw this. Some of them had heads of gators. You know what I mean? Gods had animal heads. But that idea of pluralism and allowing for different people, but to do it in a respectful way, that's where, you kind of got to find that balance. It is okay to do folk man, especially when it's in your family, it's in the culture. The Cajuns have a huge amount of this, because I'm not Cajun, but much of my DNA is French Canadian.
And a lot of people are ignorant of Cajun culture, and a lot of people that are screaming at me are big city people that are not from Louisiana whatsoever and have no idea about my culture whatsoever.
Yeah, but they have granny witches.
I am not going to sit and explain to them, about Cajun culture and Creole culture and stuff, because they're not going to listen anyway.
No, they're not. They already have their mind made up.
Yeah.
And They're not open to that conversation, and that's where the problem lies, is we need to learn from each other. And again, we're not going to always agree, but we need to be open enough to hear what your side of it is. And okay, I don't agree with you, but I see your point and I see where you're coming from. And as Christian said, the too often we just go to, well, you're wrong because I'm right.
Yeah.
And that gets us nowhere, and it just shuts down discussion and finding that maybe there is some third perspective that comes from our conversation. Like, maybe we've never spoken before, but now that we've spoken, our conversation, our dialogue, our interaction has created a whole new perspective that didn't exist until we came together. And that is, that's the very essence of the kind of, New Orleans culture that I love so much, is that it's impossible not to bleed all together.
Yeah.
There are things you maintain, as an initiate of the craft, we maintain very strict ways of practice, but we also have always borrowed magic, we've always found ways of acclimating to the culture where we are, so you can be that sort of strict rule book, but still have space for play and experimentation, and that folk magic is that. It is
Yeah.
that its essence, because it's the folks. I mean, it is the people of the land, the people of the swamps, the people of the deserts, figuring out whatever it is that makes their life better through magic. And if they can access it, at that level where, they don't have to have millions of dollars, they can just, their grandmother taught them what to put in the soup,
Yeah.
And how do you police, they deleted their comments, but somebody had put these comments in the chat before we ever went live. And there were these questions, well, how do we police these and how do we get rid of these people from our community? First of all, you don't. If you could, I'd been gone. I mean, they've tried to cancel me so many times, and I'm like a cockroach. I will just keep coming out of the wall every night, and that's just the way it is. And then if there's a nuclear war, Cher and I and the cockroaches, we'll be rocking out. But it's I don't know. It's a really difficult thing, to try to find that balance and to listen. We all have that. We all have that stubbornness. I'm very stubborn.
Yeah.
Where I don't necessarily always want to hear that point of view if I think they sound stupid. And frankly, a lot of people do. But you have to force yourself. You have to force myself. Stop stealing my lines about you. What line? What line is
I have to let my pug in. He's having a fit.
Oh.
Well, anyway, thank you for calling in, Shyla.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and it's good to reconnect with you.
Yeah.
Well, keep rocking, because they can't. You can only cancel yourself.
Exactly. And unlike you, they've tried to cancel me so many times, it does them no good.
Oh, have a good one. Oh, that wasn't you. I've been calling myself a cockroach. Somebody called me like 15 years ago the king of the cockroaches, and I thought that problem. I'll survive a nuclear war, bitches. I did want to bring something up. Jay, how do I... Here, hold on. Because I want her to be on the phone, because she was apparently there for this. And I want to... And we're probably going to run a little late anyway, because we...
Yeah, because we started late. Yeah. My fault. My fault.
Let me see. Hold on. Hold on. I'm trying to get you through the roadcaster here. You already paired it. What the hell is it?
Actually, Kayla and Jenna, if you guys are listening, you know whose fault it really is.
All right. Yeah, with us now.
Yes, I am.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, so I want to bring up. This is a very sensitive picture that I am about to bring up onto the screen.
Hold on, I can't see it because you called me. I was watching from my phone.
Oh, well, you've already seen it.
Okay.
It's a picture of our friend there, the homeless person.
Oh, the guy who came into the shop the other day. Yes. Oh my God, I was so happy to see him.
Well, give me just a sec because I want to bring this up. So I want people to take a real hard fucking look at this picture. This is my first chance of addressing this. So last August, on a very hot summer day, this gentleman, who you can see from the picture at that time, was at death's door. You know, no shoes, homeless, you know, very addicted to whatever, drugs. And I get a call from my staff at the store because this space that you're looking at is right next door to Hex New Orleans. And so I get a call from my staff that Nutless Wonder had given this person a t-shirt that on the front said no racism in witchcraft, and then on the back said boycott Hex, WitchCon, Festival of the Dead, Omen, the owners are racist. You know, these people call us racist. I'm like I said last week, I am the only racist in America that believes in DEI, affirmative action, and reparations for slavery. I mean, that'll get me into the KKK club. You know, I just, but anyway, and told this man to stand in front of our store with this boycott Hex. And my staff not only gave him a non-confrontational t-shirt from our store, but Kaylin, one of them, I think it was Kaylin, gave him money to go buy shoes. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, naturally, I don't like that they took advantage of this mentally ill, you know, drug addicted, black homeless man, you know, to attack my store, but they couldn't even give him fucking shoes. This is like in my nearly 40 years in this circus freak show called The Magical Community, this fucking took the cake. And what was worse is he went on Instagram and said he's all in his feelings because an unhoused person, you know, because, you know, if you're going to exploit homeless people, you better be political correct. And I hate the word fucking unhoused. And for the record, there was a time in my life when I was homeless, and I prefer the word homeless because it stings more, because it says more. I'm never going to use the fucking word unhoused. But of course, Nutless Wonder used the word unhoused because, you know, if you're going to exploit this person, you know, might as well. But I want you all to know that he then goes on to Instagram, as I'm up in my feelings, and said, I gave this man a t-shirt. And it only showed the one side where it was no racism in the craft. But it was pretty clear that he was exploiting this man, even on the Instagram. Christopher Penzak supported this. Matt Oren supported this. Storm Fairy Wolf, Chaz Bogan, Evo Dominguez Jr. all support this man doing this. They presented his event. They support this man who went on to my grandmother's Find a Grave site and desecrated it. Let me tell you something. I am an asshole. I'm a cunt. When I've had to fight, I have fought, as my father would say, cold, hard, cruel, and mean. I make no bones about it, nor do I make apologies. However, I cannot imagine a universe in which I'm so mad at somebody that I would desecrate some grandmother's grave that other relatives might see. And I would certainly never look at a person like this and see, oh, this person on a hot summer day where the streets are really hot has no shoes and no shirt, and I'm going to give him a shirt that puts him in some sort of conflict, you know, because now he's got this shirt that's controversial and attacking another business and just randomly sticking him in front of our store. And who knows what any person walking down the street might have done here. Couldn't be bothered to give him some food, couldn't be bothered to give him some shoes. This guy is a scumbag of the most epic proportions. And if you out there watching this hate me and think this person is where it's at, I'm really glad you hate me. I really am, because I wouldn't want to know you. If you think Evo Dominguez, if you think Christopher Penzak, if you think Matt Oren, if you think Devin Hunter, if you think Storm Fairy-Wolf and the rest of you that sidle up to him day in and day out, if you think that's okay, you are the lowest form of scum. You really are. And I don't want to know you. I have more integrity in this fucking thumbnail than you have in your whole body, no matter how cunty I've ever been in my life. But this story, thankfully, has a happy ending that I'd actually like you, Jay, to tell, because I believe you were there, weren't you?
Yes. The other night, it's about 9 p.m. And I had just ended the tour, and I was there with Pauline, who is the current store manager. We were in there. She's getting ready to close up. I just escorted all of my guests out, and a man walks in, and he's so happy to see us, and we're confused. He's like, "You don't remember me, huh?" And we're like, "No, should we know who you are?" And you look a little bit closer, and you realize it's that man. He's gone to rehab. He's got himself clean. His sisters allowed him to come live with her. He had on clothes and 2 shoes on his feet. Pauline fell out in tears. It was a blessing. He still clearly got a long way to go because he's extremely thin, but he's healthier now. He does not look like he's going to die. That time last year, this man was.
Oh, we lost both of them.
Well, sorry. Every time I show something on that screen, it seems to take me out of the mix for some reason. But no, I was really glad to hear this. Now, did he also stop by, Nutless Wonder Shop?
No, he did not.
Oh,
Which is something to point out. He came in, he talked to us. I actually gave him a couple dollars so that he could have bus fare to get back to his sister's house and get himself something to eat. But he came over there to us specifically to show us that he had got clean and he was doing better, because he came to the people around Decatur who had showed him kindness.
well, I'm very proud of our staff. They've always had that kind of compassion, and it's important because, a lot of people undervalue the contribution of a witch shop in terms of the civil rights of witches, because especially in tourism towns, someone comes to Salem, they come to New Orleans, they come into a witchcraft or voodoo or other magical occult shop, and when they're helped, they go back like ants bringing food back to the nest, and they say to their friends and family in Arkansas, "I met a witch and they helped me, and I got a new job, I found a new boyfriend, this candle helped me do this." Witches don't kidnap children and eat babies. They're wonderful, magical, healing people. And that elevates and socializes our magical religions and improves on our civil rights. And I've never lost that. I've never lost that perspective in all the 18 years I've had shops, because it is who we are. And we heal people. And that person we helped, in our own small way. Not me there, I'm not on the ground, but, I naturally approved of everything, they would do to help me. Whereas Nutless Wonder sees this person and says, "Oh, how do I exploit them in my business dispute?" Like, I really mean it when I say this to, Penzak and Devin and all these other ne'er-do-wells, who think they're so noble as they virtue signal day in and day out, as they're supporting someone who would do that. And I get it. I'm sure these people see what a loser he is. I'm sure they all know. But they hate me so much, they're willing to get into bed with the worst kind of creatures in order to feel any sense of vindication of being vindicated. And yet I'm still here. It's not like I've gone away, and so for what was it all for? What were all these divisions and attempts to isolate me from the community for? I'm still here. And now I'm doing the reason, well, not the, one of the reasons that I brought this show back was that I really wanted people to hear directly from me. And it's different just watching me type on, if you happen to catch a post or you happen to catch a thing, you might see a post. It doesn't convey tone, and I tend to come across as a cunt in writing, and I want you to hear my voice directly so you can hear that I sound like a cunt here too. It's about getting the truth and knowing what's up. And so there'll be some things, over time that, there are some of these things out there, like certain public statements and things, like that River Anodian creature, that I never addressed. Well, now I can address them all these years later because they accomplished nothing. I remember when they said I was banned from all the Gardnerian and Alexandrian gatherers. Well, banning me from a Gardnerian gatherer is like banning me from the Mormon church. I'm not Gardnerian. I don't care. And as for the Alexandrian...
that was so left field. Like, okay.
Here's the best part. The best part is that, Brian and Sharon Day, who's not related, but, good friend, and I basically put together the Grand Sabbath in Cornwall last year for Maxine Sanders. It's the only Alexandrian gather that matters. And I was one of the 4 people that orchestrated the entire thing as a first degree, no less. I wasn't even a second degree, and I helped orchestrate the entire thing. And there were people that had signed that public statement that weren't allowed to go because either they sacrifice animals or they do weird things that aren't part of craft, and again, I don't criticize, if you're sacrificing animals in the context of, Santeria or something else, well, that's fine because that's part of that culture, but it's not part of ours, and we don't do that. Not, and we're, the priesthood of the craft, our priesthood of the craft every day. We're not just priesthood in the circle. We're not just priesthood on a Thursday while we practice voodoo on a Friday and Santa Muerte on a Saturday and something else on Sunday. It's not who we are. We're a priesthood. It's much like in Haitian voodoo, they're a priesthood. And part of that is sacrificing, so it'd be hard for them. There are examples like Sally Glassman that doesn't sacrifice animals, but as a whole, to be a voodoo priest is to Haitian voodoo. You're going to do this with the animals, and part of the culture, just like it's part of ours not to, and that's okay, But now it's just, I don't know. Those are some of the things I came back on the air because you're getting it directly from me. You're not hearing it through 10 layers of other people I've never had a conversation with. Like most of these people that have opinions of me, I've never spoken to. Somebody went, oh, this is funny. That's called social confidence, aka safety in numbers. Except there's an old song. God, I don't remember who sang it though. Nothing from nothing gets nothing. You gotta have something if you want to be with me. Well, mathematically speaking, any number times 0 is still 0. So it's always amused me when these people came in numbers. Oh, we're all going to take down Christian because we get numbers. But you don't, because most of you are zeros. And even if only one of you was a 0, every other one of you would be a 0, because every number, any number multiplied by 0 is still 0. Isn't that fascinating? Nothing for nothing gets nothing.
I was told there would be no math.
Well, I mean, Christian's contribution to the craft is unappreciated, I feel. Well, sometimes it does bother me. I mean, I remember that idiot Matt Oren. You know, people always ask me, is Psychic Witch a good book? I said, oh, it's a great book, but I haven't read it. Well, how do you know it's a great book if you haven't read it? I said, everything Laurie Cabot teaches is great. You know, but he did some blog about all the books about working with the dead and witchcraft, a genre I literally fucking created. You know, in my, you know, I get he doesn't like me, so my book's not going to be there, but it was just a little bit cheeky to not have that, you know, the Witch's Book of the Dead in there, you know. But here's the thing, Angelo, is you cannot do it. You know, we're not Lady Gaga. You can't do it for the applause. You know, I saw Betty Davis once on the Dick Cavett show. Well, not, I would have been 6 years old, so I didn't see her live. But on YouTube, if you look up Betty Davis and Dick Cavett, and she talks about the work. You must love the work. She said it's going to be, she said it was 15 years before anybody would applaud. You know, she goes, now I can go to the south of France and all these people show up at the airport when I get off the plane. But it took 15 years before anybody would think of you that way. And in witchcraft, I mean, I always say being a famous witch is like being a famous janitor. No one cares about you. You're not getting a reality show. You know, Laurie Cabot's more famous than any of us, times 100, any of us. And I've gone to restaurants with her, and I can tell you nobody's come over and said, we're giving you so-and-so's table because you're Laurie Cabot. Nobody is, no one is giving us somebody else's table in a restaurant. So until you achieve that, you know, no. You got to love the work. You cannot do this for the appreciation. Because even if you're not the cunt that I am, they still won't. I mean, I remember how much they used to bash Fiona Horn for doing that TV show, and she's always so sweet and nice. And it's like, well, no, you can't do it for that. You must. It's like Betty Davis. You must love the work. You must do it for the gratification of what you're trying to accomplish.
And again, I keep going back to TikTok, but that's my whole point. We're doing this because we're magical people. We're doing this because of our belief system. We're doing this to interact with like-minded individuals. And you have these TikTok people that come on there, and they're not all bad, because again, we've made some good solid friends off of TikTok, but you have these TikTok people that come on, and it's for the likes, it's for the attention. They read a book and now they think they're the authority on everything, and they have no history, no lineage, no knowledge base, but yet they're going to be the gatekeeper or try to teach somebody how it's supposed to really be done.
I am posting a code in the chat right now. So keep your eyes open. And I realize you're going to have to dip and run to go do this. But I'm putting a code in the YouTube chat, and only the YouTube chat. There's no free giveaways to you Facebook people. You got to go on to YouTube. And believe me, if I could find a way to make you subscribe, I would. But I hope you do anyway. Subscribe to YouTube. So if you use this code, you will get a free full weekend with Riverboat Ritual Dinner ticket to Hexfest 2026, which is, when is that? You'd think I would know off the top of my head, but getting old is not fun. I don't look 56, I don't think, but I definitely feel it. August 7th to 9th, 2026. So I am about to post this code, which means you all got to run, because it's one use, only one use for this code. So whichever you types and clicks the fastest, boop. I just put it in the YouTube chat. I rather enjoy did you see the code?
Yeah, it's there.
Did you read what it says?
Yes.
on the show.
I can't comment, but yes.
No, I actually love doing those sorts of codes. Like I've given Christian friends, I worship Satan. There's like a code to the witch's ball. I'm like, I love the devil. Like I'll give them like these really fucking over the top codes that in order to use, they're selling their soul just a smidge to use. But yeah. No, I mean, I think this is an important topic, this closed practice thing. Because
I do too. I think it needs to be discussed more.
what forces you it forces you to see both sides, or find the middle. It's one of those topics where both sides tend to sound ridiculous because they're so extreme. One side's like, I can be anything I want. I can be a vampire. I can be a sin eater. I can be a Catholic bishop. I can be a Reiki master. I can be a theurgist. I can be a blah, 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 blah. And you look like a moron. And, then at the other end, it's like, if you're not a black person that was born on the full moon in the year of the cock, of the Chinese calendar.
But I have to say though, this isn't just in witchcraft, paganism, spirituality. It's not just in this community. It's in other religious communities too. And I know I reference the Catholic Church a lot, but I see this in Catholicism all the day. You've got the ones that support the Latin Mass or want to keep that continued and keep it in circulation, and then you have the whole other side that does not, and they're fighting. And I'm right.
Now he had a church on his property where they would do the Latin Mass.
Yeah.
And well, he wanted to bring back the pogroms. I mean, that movie, The Passion of the Christ, I went to see that with a Pentecostal minister, by the way. So I had to, of course, hold myself back from cheering at all the bloody parts. Get him! Stick him! And I couldn't do it. I couldn't catcall. But that vendor presenter info. Oh, if you go to hexfest.com and go to vendors, there's a become a vendor. And I think we have a space or two left. If you weren't born before Hocus Pocus came out, you cannot join our party. It's so like you've got both extremes. It's like not less wonder. Well, he isn't even in his Llewellyn bio. He says he has a combined 100 and something 11 degrees in different traditions and all of this. And it's like that's not a bragging right to me. It's like that weird Stephen Bragg that I haven't heard from him in years. He seems to have disappeared, but Kirk,
yeah, he's still alive.
I don't know, knowing the way he gets around. I mean, unless he's on every imaginable viral blocker there is, I don't know. But talk about taking the bus. But the Hoodoo San Luis and I one day counted. He had 13 different religions, and at least 10 of them were initiatory. And it's called people wanting attention and to be the numero uno, so they take down whoever they deem as their way to start in their way, which is so stupid. You can't do it that way. I never became anything till I stopped trying to be Laurie Cabot. And yes, I still have the eyes, but you can't be that. I always say there's like this stream of women. Linda Eder, Jane Oliver, Sheena Easton, Maureen McGovern. There's just this long list of these women that were all branded the next Barbra Streisand. And of all those women that most of you probably haven't heard of, unless you're my age, you probably heard of Sheena Easton, maybe. You might have heard of Maureen McGovern. I don't know. But all these women were the next Barbra Streisand. And the last one of those women to have a #1 album on Billboard's 200 albums Barbra Streisand, and the last one before her to have one was Barbra Streisand. So you can't, if you're trying to be Nicki Minaj, well, no, never mind. No one wants to be Nicki Minaj. If you're trying to be Aretha, you're not going to be Aretha. That's not how stardom or success works. It's finding who you are, you know, pulling that from within and putting it out there and saying, oh, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm here. This is what I want to say and put into the world. And if I had tried to make what I've done in this life, you know, I'm not the most successful person, but I've done okay. It's been a bit, you know, this economy isn't fun, and they've closed up half the streets in New Orleans. So everybody in New Orleans is a bit struggling. But, you know, I've done okay. You know, I always like to say I rode the short bus my entire childhood. I turned it into a limo. I mean, not a real limo. But I mean, I've done something with it, but I didn't do it on anyone else's back. Like, I never had to take anybody down. And if I wanted to, if I wanted to be the only wit shop or something like that, I would have opened somewhere where there wasn't another one. You know, and then my success would have made sure there were more within time. But no, I really believe the rising tide lifts all boats. It's when people do it in sleazy ways, you know, that people that have worked for me that have gone on to open a store and do it in this very predatory way, revenge or some sort of thing. Well, that never plays well. You know, you never really get mileage from that.
Yeah, I've seen stuff online that people have ripped off so directly from me. Because I random Google search stuff just once in a while, just kind of to check on things, and I saw a woman on Etsy that literally had cut and pasted my bio. Like, that was just so perplexing to me. Like, okay, that's not you, that's me.
I had somebody steal the tarot history from our site. I think I said this last week. And when I confronted them, they went on about these ethers of, you know, Akashic records and how we're all pulling from the same records. And this woman must have been inspired the same way as we were writing this thing. And I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
40 years of this. Almost time to retire. I don't think I could, though. I'd get bored. But
Yeah, John, that really did happen.
well,
And
yes.
you Jen, you obviously, you and I have worked together quite extensively, and you know the bio on my site. It's literally the history of dark candles, and this woman stole it and put it on her Etsy shop and was basically trying to mimic my store. You know, I reported to Etsy. What, I don't know what they're going to do or whatever, but it's just like, why wouldn't you want your own product? Why wouldn't you want to sell yourself and your branding and to your customers?
The cats we copied from Nutless Wonder, and the travel charms we copied from Nutless Wonder. Remember, they accused us of. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Did we lose you?
No, I was looking at what are the responses was.
I was making a joke about those cats.
Oh, the cats will live in infamy.
I had those charm cats forever. And you hand sewed the witch hat on the cats they had. And if I knew you did hand sew them, I probably would have asked for hand sewn one, but it was a very different. I remember just calling you going, do you have any cheap little witch hats, little decorative things you can stick on top of it, make it a little more Salem? It had nothing to do with New Orleans. Like, I wasn't even thinking of that. But what are you going to do? But I don't know what we're doing. We're going to have to come up with some. I mean, I don't necessarily want to stick to the same topic every week either.
No, I've got plenty of other ideas.
I like to sort of cycle through, but I feel for this one, we really had to zero in on this whole discussion of closed practices, because it's just, yeah, some practices are closed, but you know, it's a complex issue that people are trying to oversimplify. But that's the whole TikTok generation, is, you know, keep it under 30 seconds. What do you think will happen? An interesting one. I don't know. Given that we have one of the most progressive city councils in America and they didn't care, and no one cared. The Attorney General of Massachusetts didn't care. That it escalated.
I'm really bothered by that because there was actual harm, physical bodily harm, and there was actual destruction of property. Like, how do you just ignore that?
They said it wasn't vandalism. You know, basically these Christians came into the stores and it's like if you're rubbing these oils with frankincense and myrrh in them that are actual, you know, they do damage surfaces.
They're corrosive. They are.
The oil that they rubbed at Tim McGuire's Halloween museum, it hasn't come off yet. It's still there, but that's not vandalism. I also think it's a hate crime. I mean, you know, in terms of in multiple cases around America, the FBI determined that it was a hate crime when people put bacon on the doorknobs of mosques because of the Muslim aversion to pork. So putting their oils on our altars, I do think is vandalism. But when they filmed Sean Kelly at the Psychic Fair, and then they saw him in the parking garage with his mother, one of them walked up and punched him in the face, and no charges have ever been filed. So, you know, it does sort of annoy me. You know, that's those sort of token liberals that virtue signal, but if, you know, these Christian fascists actually show up in their face, they all run because they're cowards. So I do worry because I do wonder at which point, you know, these people escalated this past year to a point I've never seen. And that ghastly Jerry Hildebrand that we talked about last week, that is literally like the person I hate the most in the magical community. When this came up at the Pagan Solidarity group, you know, she told Mark a Nightmare, who has thankfully since resigned along with Jerry from the Pagan Solidarity group, that, oh, Christians just being dramatic. These Christians come every year. Well, first of all, fuck you, Jerry. Fuck you hard. Fuck off and die. And just all those things. Fucking scam.
Don't get me started on Maka Nightmare either, because she's somebody that I have got a trail on of side switching and
nail trail. Yeah. No, when I heard that, first of all, even if these Christians have been raucous and horrible for 30, 40 fucking years, which they have, that doesn't make it right. Even if they've even if they never escalated beyond constantly yelling at people and getting in people's faces and calling them sodomites. I remember in 2013, Brian's first year in Salem, we met in New Orleans. He didn't see this in person where I really go all out with the hats and this and that. And this was the first year the Christians really zeroed in on me. It had always been Lori Cabot. Now it was me and Lori Cabot. And they're walking down the street. My new boyfriend, we're walking down the street, and I hear the bullhorn behind us. Christian Day, sodomite, warlock, what profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? I mean, literally, people change. So they have escalated, Jerry. No, do you remember Tyson, Sean's ex?
Yeah.
Tyson. He described her the best. He said, Jerry Hildebrand talks as though her cunt is filled with cream cheese and cherry. Never heard like that. You just can't help it. It's the reason everybody hated Dolores Umbridge and they could tolerate Voldemort. Voldemort was sort of cool, even if he was bad. But you just hated Professor Umbridge. That's Jerry Hildebrand. Oh, the Christians have been coming for years. They've never escalated the way that they have now. And I do worry.
And again, what I said earlier, I respect their right to protest, but when you cross that line and you're physically touching people or causing bodily harm or vandalism, that's not a peaceful protest. That is malicious, and we've turned into criminal charges at that point. That's not protected by any amendment.
I feel like the current polarized culture is absolutely causing these people to escalate. But it's also it's who controls the microphone. I told my friend Oberon Zell, because he started that whole thing, and they quickly tried to shuffle him off. I said, they keep fighting me. He said, they don't want to do this, and they don't want to do this, and they don't have any courage, and they don't want to do this, and they're acting like, sheep. And no. I said, Oberon, most of them don't have the courage to do anything. Some of them do have the courage, but they don't want you to do it because it gives you the microphone. These people are so petty and jealous. Even Selena Fox, they were horrible to him. They were absolutely horrific. Horrific. And Jerry was one of the ringleaders of this because when I joined, Jim Sayers does this, you know, he and Davron Michaels, a bunch of them that do this, you know, pagan solidarity thing. And I went to some of the meetings. My husband would make fun of me as he walked by. Like, what are you doing with these people? And yeah, it was sort of sad in many ways. I mean, I love Jim Sayers and Oberon, but there were a lot of these like, why the fuck am I here sort of people. And a bunch of us wanted to do more outgoing outreach type of thing. And we came up with this idea of writing, you know, a letter of pagan solidarity against the ICE raids and what ICE was doing. And then Hildebrand gets on there. I'm representing a 501c3 national. This cunt does not go 5 minutes without using the word national in at least 4 sentences. Is a part of the national pagan leadership, and as a media expert, Google News this woman. You'll find 3 listings, and one of them I was the cover photo for that particular news article. And so they don't want to do the ICE letter. We'll lose our 501c3s. This is where these pagans that go around trying to be, I'm going to be a 501c3, I'm a recognized church, I'm a, that means nothing if you have to sell your spiritual soul to get there. Okay? So she fought and fought and fought, and then she stormed off because, you know, she just wasn't getting her way. And then I see a few months later, now that the Unitarian Universalist Church has come out with a statement against ICE, she shares it to the CUPS, you know, Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, Facebook group. She shares it, and we stand against ICE. Oh, but when it was fucking Oberon and those people, oh, you know, we don't want to lose our 501c3.
So what? So you don't have to pay tax on your toilet paper at Walmart? I mean, that's really all that is.
She used to have to. She used to weigh like 600 pounds, and then she had her stomach stapled. Frankly, I think she should have done the mouse. Would have killed 2 birds with 1 stone. But I remember the first time we saw her after she lost all this weight, and all the flaps were still there. And Sean Poirier looks at me and goes, "She looks like a fried egg hanging on a nail."
I can hear Sean saying that.
There is this show, if you haven't seen it, and the lady that originally did it is no longer hosting the videos, but somebody put them back up on YouTube, and it's called Got to Be Real. GOT, the number 2, the letter B, and real. And it's basically this fake reality show of all the R&B divas. And this woman does the voiceovers, and she has a couple that do other voices, you know, but she does most of them. But there's one that does Dionne Warwick, and they're basically, you know, it's Mariah Carey and Whitney and, you know, Aretha and Dionne and, you know, Mary J. Blige and they're Beyonce, and they're all just battling it out, hurling fucking shade at each other and all this, and just being just vicious. And at one point, Aretha and Dionne Warwick are going at it, and she looks at Aretha and she's like, "You might have lost all that weight, but you still got the heart of a big bitch," you know. And it's like, that's Jerry Hildebrand. You know, it's like, may you never to encounter this person.
All right. Well, we're at 12:30, so
Well, we're gonna see you all next week. I don't know what we're going to be talking about or who. It could be anybody or anything. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.